Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing today? Let's see here. I'm just trying to finalize up your grades because I told you guys that I had to have them in all by 3 o'clock. There is a few of you guys I've already spoken to that had tech issues and stuff, so you guys still have a little bit of extra time. But everybody else who got it in, thank you for getting that in on time, and you guys should be good for the third quarter now. Everything from here on out will be fourth quarter material. So if you noticed anything was off, or if you think that you turned something in and I still gave you a 0 for it, point it out to me, because I think from 7 o'clock yesterday till about 2 minutes ago, I've probably gotten over 150 emails. So I've been trying to go through every single email, checking to see who turned in an assignment, who didn't. So I think I got them all, but odds are I could have made a mistake somewhere. So don't be afraid to email me if you think you turned something in. All right. Yeah, if you have it, Tessa, turn it in right now, because I'm actually on your class right now on my other computer screen. I might have actually just marked that you had it because you've been turning everything in on time anyways. Sierra, don't fall asleep. Especially because you said you couldn't stay the whole time anyways. Alright, so still waiting. We only got 3 people that's showing up on my end. I gotta put it on my other monitor. My other monitor shows everybody that's in chat. My first monitor is very delayed. Let's see here. Do you think that's gonna work? No, it's really showing that there's only 5 people watching. Alright, well, no big deal. I'll just go through these problems with you guys since you're here, so I don't have to hold you guys up. So I'll do it slowly just in case if you guys didn't watch the first 2 videos. We did questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. That was 2 days ago. Yesterday we did 5, 6, 7A, and 7D. Today I want to do 7B and 7C with you guys because they're very, very similar problems. And then I'm going to do a couple on the 3rd page, and then we'll finish this all up on Thursday. And then we're going to be done for the week. Holy cow, today's Wednesday? Holy cow, I thought it was Tuesday. I've completely lost track of time. I even said it was Wednesday because I knew all the grades were due today. I don't know. All right, so I am going to start off with 7C. So I'm starting off down here, 7C. We're going to be subtracting some fractions. And this is very, very similar to some stuff that we were doing the last couple of days, like with the complex fractions, which is what we're going to get to on the next page. This is where we can't add or subtract unless the denominators are the same. So if we look at our denominators in this case, you guys will already notice they are the same. And that's why I wanted to start with C, because they're already the same. If they are the same, that means what you are allowed to do is combine the tops. You just got to be careful when you guys are doing the subtraction ones, because that subtraction sign we said has to be distributed to both numbers. So when you guys go to subtract this, the denominator is going to be that 16 minus x squared. But when you guys go to subtract the top, you'll have x squared minus 2x minus 8. Because that negative has to distribute through. All right. Yeah, I see a few more people joining in now, so I'll like kind of... Yeah, it just jumped up like 10 people, it looks like. So if you guys are just joining in late, we're on 3rd page. We're doing question number 7C. So I just did the first step. We said find the LCD. In this case, the LCD was already the same. They both were 16 minus x squared, so we didn't have to do anything. And then we subtracted the tops. You just have to make sure you distribute that subtraction sign. Now that I did that, we just have to simplify our fraction by factoring the top and bottom. So the top is just a trinomial. So I could split that up into two bubbles. In this case, it looks like we're going to have 4 and 2. And the subtraction sign has to go with the 4. As far as the bottom goes, we can simplify that with dots because 16 and x squared are perfect squares and it is subtraction. So I could split that up into two bubbles. 16 is going to be 4 and 4. Thank you, Tessa. And the x squared would be x and x. Because it is dots, we have to make sure that the signs are opposites of each other. So it doesn't matter which order you put them in. One's positive, one's negative. In this case, we can cancel out something on top and bottom. But this is like what we talked about yesterday. Remember, if you have the same thing on top and bottom, but it's reversed with subtraction, not only do you cross them off, but you have to put a -1 above it. So in this problem, we would be left with -1 times x plus 2 on the top. And you can write it as 4 plus x. I like putting the x first, so I'm going to put x plus 4 on the bottom. Doesn't matter how you put the order on the bottom. I just like x being first. Oops. All right, so is there any questions going through that? Because what we're going to do up in part B is almost exactly the same. It's just in part B, it's with addition instead of subtraction. If you wanted to distribute the negative, you can too. I figured somebody was going to ask that. You don't have to, though. All right. So I'm just going to go up to part B. Same type of question. There's just one step that's going to be a little bit different. And that's because if you look at the denominators, they're not the same. So we have to make sure that we find our LCD first. So in order to find that LCD, we just have to make sure we factor the denominators. So the first fraction, I have x minus 6 all over. I can factor that trinomial on the bottom by doing out my two bubbles. So it looks like in this case, I have my x and x. I'm going to have a 4 and a 1. And it looks like the 4 is going to be positive and the 1 is going to be negative. In the second one, I have an 8 on the top. And on the bottom, it looks like I'm going to have x times x plus 4 because I did GCF. Javon, final answer was -1 times x plus 2 all over x plus 4. I'll go back to it a little bit if you need me to. So now what you guys have to do is find your LCD. So when you guys go to look for that LCD, you have to make sure you're looking at your denominators. And really, the first thing you always should be doing is seeing if anything matches. And in this case, we do have an x plus 4 that matches. So that has to be a bubble in the LCD. As far as the rest of the LCD goes, you just have to write down the remaining stuff on the bottom. So we still have an x on the bottom, and we still have an x minus 1 on the bottom. So now that we have our LCD, we just have to make sure that our denominators have that LCD in it. And we're not allowed to cross off like we're doing with, like what we're going to be doing on the next page, because in order to add the fractions together, you have to keep the denominators. So we have to multiply it to top and bottom. We don't have a choice. So I'm going to multiply, if I look at the first fraction, I have the x plus 4, I have the x minus 1. I'm missing x on top and bottom. So I have to multiply that into both of those. In the second fraction, we're missing x minus 1, so we have to multiply that into both top and bottom. We can't do the shortcut when they're expressions. We're only allowed to do the shortcut if it's an equation. So since there's no equal sign, we can't cross off the bottoms. The bottoms have to stay. So again, we'll do the shortcut on the next page. This page, we can't do it because they're not equations. So as far as the top goes, I wrote it down as one fraction. I wanted to write it down as two fractions. So that is the denominator in both of them. The first fraction looks like it's going to be x squared minus 6x because I'm just distributing it in. And the second fraction looks like it's going to be 8x minus 8. I'm writing pretty big, so I got to start shrinking some stuff. So now I'm just going to combine like terms. So that bottom denominator stays the same because when you add, you don't change that bottom denominator at all. And now if I combine like terms on the top, I have x squared. It looks like I have negative 6x plus 8x, which would give me 2x. And then I have minus 8. Now, just like part C, now we just have to make sure everything's factored. We already have the bottom one factored. We can't change the denominator anymore, but we can factor the top. So I'm just going to draw a little arrow off to the side and finish this problem off. So we can factor the top by getting our two bubbles again. And it looks like we're going to have x and x, 4 and 2. The 4 looks like it's going to have to be positive, and the 2 is going to have to be negative. All over that x times x plus 4 times x minus 1. And it looks like the only thing that's the same on top and bottom are those x plus 4s. So we can cancel those guys out. And we're just going to be left with the x minus 2 on the top. And then x times x minus 1 on the bottom. So that one had a few more steps in it. But in the long run, all those steps were the same as what we did before. We just had to find an LCD this time because in part C we did not have to. Okay. So I'll hold up to make sure that you guys are okay with that. All right. So if you guys feel good with that, I'm going to jump down to the next page. Now, I don't plan on doing all three of these ones with you guys. They are complex fractions. They're all going to be solved the same way. I'm going to do two of them with you guys. And the two that I'm going to do are A and B. I'm not going to worry about C because if you can do A and B, C is the same thing. So, there it goes. I'll start off with A. Complex fractions is very, very similar to what we just did with the adding and subtracting. They're almost identical, except we have to add in one extra step. And that extra step is really the shortcut method. The reason why is because if you guys look at the top of this fraction, we have subtraction on the top and we have addition on the bottom. So what we're doing is first we have to make sure that everything is a fraction first. Because when you guys go to find an LCD, they all have to be fractions. This one, I made it a little bit easier for you guys because if you guys look at all of your denominators, when you guys go to look for the LCD, you guys know that your LCD has to have a 1 and an x in it because those are the only denominators that you see there. So since that's all it is, That's what we can leave it as. Now, this is where you guys can do the shortcut. And the reason why is because we talked about when we do complex fractions, when you guys have fractions on the top and fractions on the bottom, we went into that method of keep, change, flip. When you do keep, change, flip, the denominators are always going to be the same and cancel out. So when we do the shortcut method, as soon as you guys get that LCD, you just have to multiply it by every single fraction that's inside the complex fraction. So I'm just multiplying all 4 of them by x, and I'm just going to put it over 1. A couple of you, like Javon and Ella, you guys in my Zoom meeting when we were going over the homework, you guys like doing it the other way and crossed all the denominators off. Some of you guys like doing that first shortcut, and that's fine. I just like doing it this way because you don't have to write as much. So now when I go to multiply, I can cancel stuff off that's on top and bottom if they are the same. The first fraction over here, x over 1 times 1 over 1, there's nothing we can cancel out, so it's just going to be x. You could write x over 1 if you want, but x divided by 1 is still going to be x. The next part, you have 1 over x times x over 1. Well, the x is on top and bottom, so you're allowed to cancel those out, and you're just left with minus 1. As far as the bottom goes, same thing. X over 1 times 1 over 1 is really just going to be x. And in the second fraction, again, the x's are going to cancel out, and you're just left with plus 1. And fortunately for us, there's nothing else we can do for this problem because x minus 1 and x plus 1 can't be factored. So you're done. That's it. Okay. So I tried to make that first one a little bit easier. We'll go slightly more intense in part B. And I only say slightly. It's not going to be anything too crazy. Part B, same exact steps. In order to solve it, you have to make sure that they are all fractions. So the top ones are fractions, but the bottom one's not. So make sure that you're putting that y on the bottom over 1. So I put it over 1. Now I just have to look at this and I have to make sure that I have an LCD. So I'm hoping you guys are okay with that first one. Sierra, what we're going to probably do after this question is go into the long division and synthetic division. So if you don't remember those, definitely come see me during the Zoom hour at 1 o'clock and I'll help you out. So in this one, when we go to do the LCD, we got to look at all those denominators again. So we have the x plus y, the x, and 1. So the easiest way to find the LCD is just write all of those denominators as your LCD. So I'm just going to put down 1, x, and the x plus y, since it was all in the bottom, that's going to be your third part. And you're just multiplying them all together. So it's just 1 times x plus y. That would be your LCD. Now that we have the LCD, all we have to do is multiply it by all 3 fractions. So the first one, I have to multiply it by x times x plus y over 1. And again, notice that I'm not putting the 1 out front because if you multiply something by 1, you're going to get the same thing anyways. So we don't really need this 1 here. If you don't want to put the 1 out front, you don't have to. Second one, same thing, x times x plus y all over 1. And the last one is x times x plus y over 1. Well, now we're just checking to see if anything's the same on top and bottom. In the first one, we have x plus y's that are the same on top and bottom. So you're just left with x times 1. In the second one, you have an x that's the same on top and bottom. So you're left with negative 1 times x plus y. All over, it doesn't look like anything cancels out in the bottom. So y times x plus y, I'm going to write it alphabetically as xy times x plus y. And now all I'm going to do is distribute the top. So if I distribute the top, I have -1 times x plus y, which would be x minus y, because I distributed that 1. The bottom, I'm not going to bother distributing. I'm going to leave it separated so I don't have to work with exponents. And now if you look at the top, x minus x is really just going to cancel out. So you're just left with a -y on the top and xy times x plus y on the bottom. There's still technically one more thing that could cancel out here, and it's because everything is multiplication now. Technically, this top part is -1 times y all over x times y times x plus y. So since it's all multiplication, you guys can look to see if anything else is the same. And you should notice you have y's on the outside that will cancel out. So we're just left with a -1 on the top and an x times x plus y on the bottom. So that one was very, very similar to part A. It's just a teensy bit harder because we had to find the LCD with a binomial. When you start working with binomials, it creates a little bit more work. If they're all monomials, it's much, much easier because you're really just multiplying each thing by one part, and that's it. Okay. All right, Sierra. It's good seeing you. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you tomorrow. All right. Have fun at work. I know you won't, but I don't know what else to say. Anybody else have questions with part B? Part C is the same exact thing as part A. What do you mean, Javon? Because you had to do the binomials? I think the ones I put on the lab were a little bit easier than the one I just did. I tried making it not as hard because I knew you guys had to do it on your own. You just have to make sure that you are finding that LCD first. Let's see here. I might actually not do the division. I might jump down to number 10 because I think that's what Javon was just talking about, is something like number 10. Yeah, I'll finish it off today. I'll pick 2 problems from 10, and then we'll go back and we'll do the long division tomorrow. Because number 10 is actually very similar to what we just did in number 8. So jump down to number 10 for me. And A is actually the easier of all 3 of them. So I'm only going to show you guys the first step in part A, and then I'll do part B and C with you guys. So part A, the reason that one's easier is because you guys have been doing that one since like middle school. If you guys ever have a fraction is equal to a fraction, you guys were always taught to just cross multiply. So this one's a little bit easier because there's not really too much math that you haven't done here before. So if I cross multiply, this is really just 2x times x plus 4 is equal to 30 times x minus 2. From there, you guys are just distributing and setting the problem equal to 0 so you can factor it out. So I'm not going to go through that one because I want to worry about the other 2. The other 2 is where that's more similar to what we did in question 8, and I think that's what you want more practice with, Javon. So for these ones, you'll distribute. You'll get an x squared in there, so you'll have to set the whole equation equal to 0, and then if you factor it, you'll get your 2 answers. All right, so I'm going to go over to part B because part B, exactly the same as up top. If you guys look at part B, you have 3, numbers here. You have 3 terms. 2 of them are fractions, 1 of them is not, and that's that 1 at the beginning. So just like before, you have to make sure they are all fractions first. So I'm going to put it over 1. And now what I have to do in order to solve it with 3 fractions is just like the top, find an LCD. Javon, if you're going to cross multiply, that means you only have 2 fractions. So if you have a fraction equal to a fraction, you just cross multiply and then you're solving. Part B and part C have 3 fractions. So you can't cross multiply here because I'm not allowed to do 16 times x because I have this 1 over here still. So you have to find that LCD first. And if you guys do that LCD for this one, then you guys can use the shortcut. So I'm putting down the LCD. I'm just looking at all the denominators. And I know the coefficient has to be 1 because there's no other numbers there. And we said the trick for finding the variable is by picking the larger exponent. So if you pick the larger exponent, in this case it's x squared, we could just say it's x squared. Some of you guys may multiply it together and say x to the 3rd power, which would work. You're just going to have to do more reducing when you go to find your answer. So now that I know the LCD is x squared, I'm just using that shortcut like I did up top. So I'm just going to multiply all 3 of them by x squared. And I like putting it over 1 just so nobody's lost. As far as the first one goes, there's nothing you can do. X squared times 1 is just x squared. As far as the second one goes, you should notice that there's an x squared on top and bottom, so they're going to cancel out, and you're just left with minus 16. And when you get to the third one, you only have one x in common on top and bottom, so you're only allowed to cross off one x. So you're just going to be left with equals 6x. Anytime you guys have an equation with x squared in it, you have to make sure you set it equal to 0. And if we go to set this equal to 0, it looks like we have to move the 6x over to the left side. It doesn't even look like we can combine it with anything, so we just have to rewrite it as a trinomial. The x is going in the middle because when you do trinomials, they have to be in standard form. And now you're just doing a regular factoring problem. So we have x and x, and it looks like it's going to be 8 and 2 because 8 times 2 will give you 16. 8 is going to be negative, and the 2 is going to be positive. So I'm just going to t-chart it. I'll have x equals 8, and x is equal to negative 2. Please make sure, and I put it up here, remember to check your solutions. So I know I just put a lot of ink on the original problem. I'm going to erase all the work that I put up here just so it's going to be easier for us to check it. But what you guys have to make sure you always do is plug those numbers in and see if they work, because sometimes they don't. So I'm just going to go right to my calculator. I'm at my main screen, and I'm just going to put in both numbers separately. So I have 1 minus, I always hit the wrong one. Alpha y equals, oh my gosh, I cleared the 1. 1 minus alpha y equals fraction. So I got 16 over, it's x squared, so I'm writing it as 8 squared because I'm going to plug in the 8 first. And then I'm going to press enter, and it says I get 0.75. So now I got to plug it into the other side. So now I'm going to plug in that 6 over x, which would just be 6 over 8. So alpha y equals 6 over 8. Oop. I don't know why it did that. There we go. And it's 0.75. So the first one does check. So this one's okay. If it's 0 on the bottom, Javon. If you have 0 on the bottom of a fraction, that's bad. We're not allowed to have that. So that's what we're checking for right now. Next one, you guys could plug in the negative 2. So I have 1 minus, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to scroll up and click enter. And instead of putting in that 8, I'm going to substitute in -2. So I'll have 1 minus 16 over -2 squared, which gives me -3. And then I have to do the other side, which is going to be, instead of 6 divided by 8, it's going to be 6 divided by -2. And in that case, it's also -3. So in this particular problem, both of them check. Sometimes they will check, sometimes they won't. So I always recommend checking it no matter what, typing it right into your calculator. I don't need to see the work. I just need you to circle it if they work, or put a line through it and write reject if it doesn't. Okay? So I am just going to do part C with you guys, call it quits for today, and then we'll go into the long division, and I'm going to skip over some problems in here because we haven't got to them yet. That's what we're going to start next week. So I'm not going to, I didn't put it on your lab. So there's like 3 questions on this packet that we haven't, like, it's on the last page. We have not done, I'm sorry, it's 2 questions, just number 11, A and B. We haven't done those yet. We'll start those next week. Javon, but if it's at the bottom, why can't you just plug in a to x? That's what I did, Javon. I was just checking to see if both sides were the same because it's an equation. So that's exactly what I did. If you were to look at my calculator, I plugged that 8 up here. I put the 8 right in the bottom like you're saying. And then I plugged in the -2 down here. You just have to check to confirm if it's still equal to the other side. Not only are you checking to see if it's undefined, but you also have to see if it actually works. All right, this last one, I'm going to go a little bit quicker with it, only because it's the same type of problem. So I'm going to look at all the denominators. I have to make sure all of those denominators are factored. Let me get rid of this calculator for right now. They are not all factored because if you look at that last one, you're going to notice, what, my 5 just stopped writing in the middle of writing? Oh, iPad, what am I going to do with you? All right, so we can't factor the first. We can't factor the second. However, if you guys get to that third one, you're going to notice that you can do GCF on the bottom. And we can pull out an x. Yeah, they have to be the same answer, Javon. Now that we got those 3, if you look at all the denominators, this one's pretty easy to figure out what the LCD is because 2 of them have the x in it and 2 of them have the x minus 2 in it. So we know that all of our denominators have to be x times x minus 2. So just like we've been doing, we're just doing the shortcut. And remember, you guys are only allowed to do the shortcut if it's an equation. If it's not an equation, we're not allowed to do it. So now I'm just canceling stuff out. So the x's, we have an x on the top and bottom in the first one, so those are gone. And we're left with 5 times x minus 2. In the second one, you have the x minus 2 on the bottom and an x minus 2 on the top. So you're left with plus x times x minus 1. And in the last one, everything cancels out, at least on the bottom and top. So you're just left with x plus 4. Will you ever get a problem like this when you only get one answer? Yeah, there's going to be times that you'll only get one answer. There's going to be times that you'll do it and there's going to be no answers, Tabitha. So it just kind of depends on how it's given to you. Depends on how all the math works out. So now I'm just going to distribute. So I have 5x minus 10 plus x squared minus 1x is equal to x plus 4. I'm going to combine my like terms. So I got, let's see here. I can combine the 5x and the minus x, which would give me 4x. So it looks like I have x squared plus 4x minus 10 is equal to x plus 4. I can subtract the x and the 4 over. So it looks like I'm going to have x squared plus 3x minus 14 is equal to 0. Did I make a mistake somewhere? Is this one not going to factor? I feel like I made a mistake somewhere. That was 5x minus 10. Because the only thing we can get is 7 times 2. And 7 and 2 isn't going to give us 3. If you guys are working along with me, do you notice a mistake? Because if we can't find a mistake, then we can't go any further in this problem. It's done. Trying to go back and look myself. I feel like I skipped over something. We said 5x times 5 times negative 2. Yeah, I don't think it factors, Ella. So the only way we would be able to solve this problem, and I'm not going to make you guys do it right now because I didn't do anything like this on the lab, is you would have to use the quadratic formula. So if you use the quadratic formula, then you can find the answers, but I'm not going to do that to you. That gets really, really crazy. Well, that stinks. Did you use quadratic formula, Zuchi, or did I make a mistake somewhere? Because the only way this is going to factor is if this number right here is a 5. And I don't think, because this was 5x and negative x, so that has to be 4. Yeah, I don't see this being a 5. You think I did something? Do you see where I did it, Azuchi? Because I'm trying to go back through my work and I can't find my mistake. It was x times x minus 2. The x is canceled out. 5x minus 10. I don't know. There's got to be a mistake somewhere because I remember this factoring out when I did my answer key. Oh well. I'm not going to hold you guys to it or anything like that because we got down to here and I just want to make sure you guys are good finding your LCD. Okay? So I am going to leave it there. Maybe I'll find it and I can show it to you guys tomorrow because it's probably something small. All right. Other than that then, I hope you guys got all those assignments turned in. And I will, if you didn't get them turned in, make sure you try to turn them in now. Email me. Oh, what the heck? Spamming symbols. Nightbot Bandazuchi for trying to help. Ridiculous Nightbot. I'll be able to see what you typed in a second, Azuchi. I just have to relog back into Nightbot. Nightbot is vicious. 5 times x plus 2 plus x plus 1 is equal to x plus plus. What happened to your x though, Azuchi? Oh, no. What happened to your x over here? So Azuchi, I just read it, but you're missing your x if you do it your way. You have x plus 1 somehow. Because this was an x minus 1. Did I write it down incorrectly? That's what it was. Oh, I see. So if you guys are still in here and you're still watching, the issue was up here. This was supposed to be x plus 1. It was a positive. So that's what threw the whole problem off. Yeah, that's all it was. So I'll fix it so you guys can look at it tomorrow for the people that were in here. Um, no big deal. It should fix it and we should be good to go then. All right. So I am out. Okay. So I gotta make sure those grades are finalized. Um, again, if you spoke with me because you were having technology issues, make sure you get those assignments into me ASAP. All right. Other than that, have a good night, guys. And tomorrow we'll finish up the rest of this packet. And then you're going to be able to enjoy a nice 3-day Easter weekend. Hopefully, you guys can have a fun Easter. But all right, I'm out. I will catch you guys later.